So imagine losing 4 entire hours of your day every single day. Not to work, not to sleep, but literally just vanishing into transit. For millions of cross-border commuters around the Jing-Jin-Ji region in China, this staggering 4-hour time tax isn't some hypothetical scenario. It's their exhausting daily reality. But why would anyone voluntarily surrender so much of their life to a commute? What is the underlying math that makes this grueling schedule a rational choice?
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the fascinating and honestly pretty complex socioeconomic calculus of the Jing-Jin-Ji region's cross-border commuters. We're going to look at the data to understand the exact cost-benefit analysis that drives people to balance the high wages of Beijing against the lower living costs of neighboring Hebei province.
Here's how we're going to map out this twin city ledger today. We'll look at the income magnet, the housing spillover, modeling the commute, the Hukou filter, and we'll wrap it all up with the satisfaction paradox.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the income magnet, or the economic pull of the capital. The disparity here is absolutely staggering. If we look at 2021 data, the per capita disposable income in Beijing sits right around 75,000 RMB. But just across the administrative border in Hebei province, it plummets to 29,000 RMB. We're talking about a near 3-to-1 income gap. For workers who are chasing economic stability and upward mobility, this wage gap acts as an irresistible economic magnet. You know, this perfectly illustrates the Lewis model in action. If you're familiar with the theory, it explains this relentless centripetal migration toward superior economic opportunities in a dual economy. Beijing acts as this massive, high-wage, capital-intensive core, and it naturally, almost inevitably, pulls in labor from the surrounding, comparatively less developed regions. It's basically the fundamental law of economic gravity at play.
Moving right along to Section 2, the housing spillover, and finding refuge in Hebei.
So when surveyed on why they actually choose to live outside the capital while working inside it, nearly 87% of these commuters point to one single thing: the prohibitive housing prices in Beijing. Make no mistake, this isn't just some preference for quiet suburban life, it is sheer financial necessity. And that perfectly explains this massive housing spillover effect into Hebei. To really put that necessity into perspective, let's look at housing prices in commuter areas like Sanhe. You've probably heard of its massive commuter town, Yanjiao. The housing prices there are a mere 17 to 21% of the prices you'd find in Beijing's core districts like Haidian or Chaoyang. Literally a fraction of the cost. For that price, workers can actually secure homeownership, which we all know is a fundamental pillar of economic security. This housing relief valve essentially establishes the fundamental trade-off of our Twin City ledger. On one side, you have core Beijing offering that high income, but demanding prohibitive rent. On the flip side, the Hebei commuter belt offers affordable homeownership, but it demands a grueling, cross-border transit in return. These commuters are deliberately, rationally, sacrificing proximity for financial survival. Which brings us to Section 3, modeling the commute, the mathematical calculus of tolerance. Now, using ordinary least squares, or OLS, and geographically weighted regression, or GWR models, researchers can actually map out the exact cost-benefit calculus taking place in a commuter's mind. Simply put, these models crunch massive data sets of mobile phone signaling and rent prices to find the precise statistical formula that drives human behavior across this whole city cluster. And the crucial takeaway here is this mathematical correlation. The models prove that the larger the disparity in wages and rents between the two cities, the longer the commute time people are actually willing to endure. It's a direct, measurable relationship. Higher potential wage gaps plus higher rent savings equals a higher tolerance for a longer commute. Plus, the models show that proximity to high-speed rails significantly alters this equation, predictably reducing that total time burden for anyone lucky enough to access it. The models also reveal a pretty fascinating demographic reality. Age plays a massive role here. Statistically, younger workers are much more willing to trade their time for higher earnings and a foothold in the housing market. They've got the physical stamina to endure the grueling trip, and they are highly focused on optimizing their long-term economic trajectory. Let's pivot to Section 4, the Hukou filter, an invisible institutional wall. Because economics alone don't explain the whole picture. A staggering 98% of these cross-border commuters completely lack a Beijing Hukou, the official household registration. This acts as a rigid, invisible institutional wall, effectively filtering them out of permanent, full-access residency in the capital, absolutely regardless of how much money they make. Without that Beijing hukou, families face what researchers aptly call rigid necessities. Most notably, non-local children face incredibly strict limitations regarding the Gaokao, the crucial university entrance exam within Beijing. Because of this, these commuters are essentially forced to settle in Hebei or Tianjin. It's not just for cheap housing, it's so their children actually have the institutional right to attend school, access public services, and take their exams locally.
Finally, we reach Section 5, the satisfaction paradox and the human toll of the equation.
Over in these Hebei commuter towns, this massive influx of people has created a really jarring infrastructural mismatch. As the research points out, you have county-level populations completely overwhelming what are essentially village-level facilities. The local schools, hospitals, and public services, they simply haven't scaled up fast enough to meet the demands of the hundreds of thousands of commuters who now call these border areas home.
Which brings us right back to our opening concept. These commuters voluntarily pay a massive time tax, where up to 4 hours just vanish daily. They are actively choosing to endure physical exhaustion, crowded transit, and inadequate local facilities, all to secure their family's economic future. It is a profound, incredibly strategic sacrifice.
Yet, the ledger remains fundamentally rational. The data proves these commuters aren't trapped by preference, but purely by economics. Listen to this. If local wages in Hebei rose to just 90% of Beijing wages, 43.7% of these commuters would instantly abandon the grueling trip and work locally. Another 25% would do the exact same thing if pay reached just 70 to 89%. The very second the ledger rebalances, the commute ends. As we wrap up this explainer, we're left to ponder a pretty profound question about this twin city ledger. We've seen the mathematical correlation of wages, rent, and commute times. We've seen the institutional barriers. But on an individual human level, when balancing income against your daily well-being, is the economic stability truly worth the ultimate time tax? It's a heavy question, and it's one that millions answer every single morning before the sun even comes up.